Hey guys, welcome to Three Blondes, One Battle.
Hello, welcome.
So today, it is actually Bobby's story. So we're gonna give her the next half hour to let us know how she was diagnosed and how she manages it now. So go for it, Bobby.
Bobby. All right. Hey guys, welcome. Hopefully this story that I'm about to tell you doesn't kind of overwhelm you. It's my story, and hopefully it can shed some light on, something that you may be going through, or, someone that you may know. Okay, so I am, let's see, 10 years having MS since my diagnosis. So backtrack 10 years ago, I was in the military. I was in the US Navy. My job, so what we call rate in the Navy, it was AO, Aviation Ordnanceman. So I dealt with all weapon systems. I worked on F-18 Super Hornets. So basically that meant I dealt with bombs, missiles, guns, whatever weapons. And that also meant taking care of the equipment that held on to those weapons from the F-18 Super Hornet.
I always think of Top Gun, like whenever you like sound badass, like I always think of like, oops, it's
Oh yeah,
sound, like,
we
cool, like
I did all of the chaff and flare and loading them up and creating them. We would get them in and we would assemble them. So it was really interesting to learn really the complexity of everything, that I never really knew what really went on with it. And really the amount, like how much it costs of weapons, like it is astounding, like what actually goes on to in it, that I never really realized. Like I come from a family that is all hunters. Like I used to hunt. So like guns are not nothing like new to me, but this whole like different realm was like, it was exciting. So anyways, I was stationed in Japan. I was there, I got there in 2010, went to boot camp, went to A school, did all of the shebang, and was straight into deployment. It was the most amazing deployment that I ever went on. I learned so much, got to see a lot of the world, and it was really eye-opening. That following year, was a year that I never really expected to ever come to fruition, and it did. And looking back, I can't believe that I actually experienced it, that I went through it, and that I'm here today a completely different person and so much stronger. So I was in Japan when the Fukushima meltdown happened. So the big earthquake that hit Japan, and it was very intense. Earthquakes still freak me out. If I feel one, it kind of brings back a lot of memories that not feel so good memories. And everything, it was a different outlook on what happened in the military, because it was something that we never really dealt with, and our whole plan of action was intensified. And I really got to see a lot of parts that I never thought I would experience in the military, but I did. So long story short, Japan, Fukushima meltdown happened, and we really didn't know that was happening. And 3 days after the reactors, there was a lot of radiation in the air. And how we found out was our helos were coming back covered in radiation, and so were our jets. And so then that's when all the questions, and then that's when the government came out and said, there is a radiation leak. So that's when everything went into full force. We were evacuating families off of the base, and it's not like it happens in a day. It's like a 2-week span. So it takes a lot, because there's so many people to evacuate. So the families left first before we ever left the base. But there was a crew that left with our jets. So they were gone before the families were, but we had to take care of things before we left for Guam. I was the last crew to leave base, and when we got to Guam, we were, what is it called, a Gaga meter. We lined it up, they picked a few people, and they kind of just scanned you. Not everybody got scanned, and everybody's boots kind of detected that there was some kind of amount of radiation on our boots. mind you, we did not get new boots. It was very hard to get boots.
That's so gross.
Yeah, it was very hard. Anyway, so
the government treating the military perfect. Oh, that's great.
Oh yeah. So we were in Guam. We were in Guam for 2 months. It was so long. And we did a lot. It was very stressful. We were doing 500 pound, 1,000-pound bombs every single day, and all of the jets loaded. So it was a workout more than what we were doing. But what happens is, because since plans change, our pilots have to be qualified, like their qualifications end. So they have to recertify and retrain and do all of this stuff. So we were doing all that in Guam, and it was just a lot more than we anticipated. But it was time. We got the thumbs up to head back to Japan, and it was time to go on deployment. And this deployment was the hardest deployment I ever went on. Nothing seemed to go right. A lot of like stressors with the job, people not doing things that they were supposed to, safety being broken, which is very huge in the military, safety. And we got in a lot of trouble, even though I was on night shift, and a lot of the problems were happening on day check. But since you're a team, everybody gets affected, which that brought morale down. And when morale goes down, everything goes with it. So when we got back to Japan, a little backstory, I got a phone call from my mom saying that my uncle passed away. He battled brain cancer for a really long time, and it really crushed me, because he was like my second dad. And it even sucked even more is I couldn't go home. There was a lot of things happening then, and they needed everybody to get on deployment. So I went on deployment, but it was about 2 months after we were in deployment, and I got an email. That was the only way I really got to correspond with my family. And my uncle unexpectedly passed away. And that caught me off guard a lot, because he just went into surgery for gallbladder surgery. And it was very unexpected. So stress levels all over. My chief could tell I was very stressed out, because we were getting a new chief, and I did not put up with anything. You pretty much really have to become this person in the military, especially as a woman, that you stand your ground. And I did not put up with anything. Well, we got a new chief in, and me and him did not mesh very well. And the EO officer, which is the I can't remember. Basically, yeah. I pretty much was like, if this continues, I'm going straight. So my previous chief, which he was awesome, he got temporarily assigned, which I was really upset, but I really liked him. He was a good chief. And I was just not meshing with this new guy. And he knew it, and I just wasn't putting up with it. And that just added more stress to my plate, which really, I was over it. I was ready to be done. But when I was in Guam, I started having really bad migraines out of nowhere. My skin started swelling up, and it mainly hit my arms, but would swell up. I would get hives, and the corpsman's like, I really don't know what's going on. Like, maybe you got into something, who knows? So that it was left as that.
Wait, how far after that radiation incident?
So it was probably max like 3 weeks, max.
And why would the corpsman say, I don't know what could be causing the skin issues?
I don't know. Exactly. And I didn't know. I was 20 years old. So I'm like, what do I know? You know, yeah. That kind of type feeling, because that's how they kind of make you feel, like you're not in this position. You don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So I started having more problems. I started getting numbness on the left side of my lips, and I thought that was kind of funny feeling. And my legs started getting impacted. Within, I would say, 2 weeks, it was full blown. It went through the whole left side of my face to the back of my head and my knees down. My lieutenant, the doctor, told me that I was tying my boots too tight, and that's why my legs were getting numb. And I got Bell's palsy. Mind you, I went to medical 6 times. Not on my own will. My chief made me go, because the first time I went, they just looked at me, the corpsman, and he's like, well, if it gets worse, come on back. And I'm like, well, it's already like getting way worse. I know deep down something's wrong, but I don't know what it is.
Wait, can we just pause for like 7 seconds and say the lieutenant said that your boots are tied too tight? You just made all first lieutenants look like major morons right then. And being that I used to be one, that's like super embarrassing, but go on.
Yeah.
So after that, they gave me prednisone, and they were like, okay, go back to work. And I remember looking at the lieutenant like, I can, like, my left eye is very fuzzy. It's not clear. My depth perception was very off, not doing very well. And yeah, you're good. Like, you got that, and we'll see you in 7 days. So I'm like,
and no one obviously at that point in time even diagnosed you with optic neuritis or sort of
nothing. And so I worked on the night check. So I worked on top of a aircraft carrier in the dark. So it was rough, and I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And so I dealt with that for 4 months straight. It just got worse and worse, and it just stayed. I could barely eat. I could even barely brush my teeth without being in tears because it was so painful. So I got to be catch crew. Basically, I got to fly off the ship early. And that morning when I woke up, I experienced vertigo, which I didn't even know what even was. I could barely walk. I was very out of my body. Trying to walk through a ship is very challenging.
Yeah, when you have it, not even when you don't have vertigo. I can't even.
And you're like, the ship swaying, like, yeah. So anyways, luckily I made it. I did not puke on the plane. I made it. And I was so proud of myself. And I was actually I got to go home for the first time in 2 years. So I was like so determined to get off that ship, because I was like, I need answers. I know something's wrong, but no one's listening to me. Mm-hmm. So got there, and a few days, like 3 days, I got to fly to the States. Well, I did pretty okay. I slept a lot. But I got hit with vertigo like 10 times worse. I could barely even walk. Like, I could barely even see. My whole optic neuritis was like full blown. And I got to the airport, got on the plane. Don't know how I did it. But you bet I was saying a lot of prayers, more prayers than I ever said to God. And I truly believe he helped me through that day and had guardian angels around me, because there were people helping me that I didn't even know. Like, they would just go out of their way to help me get to my gate, to get onto the plane, and they took care of my bags. Like, I didn't even talk to anyone. So, short story, got back to the States, went to the ER. The ER doc said, you're very malnourished. And he told me my weight, and I lost over 30 pounds. And I was very skinny, and I was very pale. And I had a major UTI infection and a horrible case of vertigo. So I was down for 2 weeks straight. I was kind of getting my bearings, things like that. Went back, me and Logan, my husband, we loaded up, went to go see my family in Idaho. Well, things got worse. I couldn't smell. I couldn't tell hot or cold, and went to another ER visit because my aunt, who's a nurse, said something is wrong. So went, and mind you, this whole time it's been over a month since I've been back in the States. And I was telling everything to the ER doc, and he's like, we're going to do an MRI. And then, of course, since I was 20, he's like, is there a chance you could be pregnant? I'm like, you know what? I probably could be. I don't know. Well, came back, I was pregnant. And so we got that and did my MRI. And my husband, the look on his face was like, holy crap, because the news from the MRI, the doctor said, we have an order in for a neurologist for you to see tomorrow, but your brain is covered in lesions. And so I was like, what does this like even mean? So my husband, like, poor thing, like he just went white ghost, because he's like, we have good news, but we have like this news that is terrifying. Like, what does that even mean? So my squadron wanted me to come back to Japan. And luckily my husband, because we were in the same squadron together, and he knew all the chiefs and the lieutenants and all of them. And he's like, no, it's not happening. Why would we send her back to Japan when we have the best doctors right here? And they're like, you know what? Okay, we'll keep you there. And so they just transferred me to a different duty station. And yeah, so I got to see this doctor, and he did all testing, did a spinal tap, and came to be 2 days before Christmas that I had multiple sclerosis. And so I didn't know what that was, but I was sitting in the living room with my mom and my sister. And I just remember looking at my mom and sister, and they just like broke down and started crying. And I'm like, okay, like what like happened? Because it was such a weird feeling, because it was this sense of relief that there was something going on.
Why? Yeah.
And even though it's not a diagnosis that I wanted, but like I was taken seriously after that. So after that, got out of the military. I was temporarily retired.
How long did your symptoms resolve? How long were your symptoms? Did they resolve?
It took, for the whole thing, I would say a year and a half. It finally went away.
Wow. Wait, so did you finally get on Solumedrol, or did they just have you on oral? Okay. So for our listeners out there, do not let it go that long. Like that is ridiculous. And that's the military for you.
No, I didn't get anything. I didn't even get to see a Navy neurologist until I had my son. And I was 3 months postpartum that I was able to go see a neurologist, which now I look back and I'm like, I should have been seen by a neurologist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So they gave me temporary retirement because they didn't believe me that I had MS. So a year after I was discharged, I had to go to a Navy base, which was Claire in San Diego. And I remember walking into the Navy doctor because I had to do everything all over again. And he looked at me and he's like, why are you even here? And I'm like, the big Navy told I need to do this. And he's like, you have MS. Like, what else do they want? And mind you, this office visit was like 3 minutes. And I'm like, and I flew clear from Idaho. So I'm like, oh my gosh, for a 3-minute doctor visit.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was the box. You were checking the box.
Yeah. So after that, dealt with the VA, which is very hard, which I can definitely go on that to more in a different, but in the military, I was put on a treatment, and that was Avonex. It was horrible. And I was not taken serious of what I was going through.
Yeah.
And anyways, I went on Tecfidera. During that time, I went on Capaxon, and my MS was just getting worse. And I just remember with the VA, you don't see the same doctor, and you have to tell the same story all over again. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I noticed my brain isn't the same. It's hard reflecting every single little detail, which matters, and I can't reflect that.
Yeah.
And it just makes it frustrating because you don't feel like you're being taken serious, like what you're going through, because they're like, well, that didn't happen. You didn't say that. Well, I just, recalling information quickly is very difficult for me, and I know that, and I'm okay with that now. I had to come to grips with it. But I pretty much, after my daughter, because we wanted to have our second child, and I told my doctor, and this was an outside doctor that worked with the VA, and he basically said, which I was on Tecfidera, I was having these softball size hives all over me after 3 months taking it. And so he made me do allergy testing, all this stuff. Nothing came back. And well, it came out that a commercial about Tecfidera, and it talked about a major side effect that if you get hives, then you should immediately stop taking it. And my doctor, I went to him about it, and he just looked at me like, no, you'll be fine. And I'm like, no, like, I want to get off of this. I want to, have my second baby. Like, I don't want to be on anything. And he's like, goes to tell me that I'm a horrible mom. I'm going to be a crippled mom. And I just walked out because I'm like, I'm not going to be treated like this. I'm going to do what I feel is right. So never went back to him. So wow. I honestly, that was my waking point is when my daughter was born, in 6 months after, like, I knew I had to do something else. There had to be something else that I could do. So that's what led me to my wellness journey. That's what led me to a functional medicine doctor. That's where I learned what autoimmune diseases really are, like what happens to the immune system. And so since then, I've really changed my whole life around. I manage my MS a lot better, but I still have really rough days. I deal with, I had a really bad MS relapse a few years ago that attacked my lower back, and it caused this horrible spasticity. And so like running or like sleeping, I can't stand for very long. I can't lay down for very long. So it's challenging. But I just definitely, I don't give up when like things get hard, because I know there's some like a good day happening. Like, I know it's not going to last forever. I know that I'm going to have those good moments, but I really had to focus on my mindset. I had to work on my mindset, because I realized
that, God, I love your mindset. And I love just, MS is a journey, and you are really, you sharing that just, I just think, yeah.
And I just knew that no one could help me. My husband couldn't help me. My family can't help me. I'm the only one that can help myself. And so that's why I've gotten so passionate about wellness. And when I had that really bad relapse, like, I really took my wellness like very seriously. And I knew then, like, you know what, maybe it is time to go back on treatment, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to depend on it to fix everything for me. So I've been doing that for 3 years, and things have gone really well with it, like no new lesions. I do still have like active lesions, but it's way better than what was happening before, which I will take. But a few weeks ago, I had a MS relapse, which I got, it's called trigeminal neuralgia. And it was the most, I didn't know it at the time, but I actually had it on my left side of my face when my very first attack, when everything started, when I was in the military.
With the Bell's palsy.
Yeah. And I was like, and I knew that feeling. And so I was telling my neurologist about it, and she's like, because I had a doctor visit with my dentist, and she's like, you know what, go to your dentist, call me after. So I called her after and told her, and she's like, okay, that just reaffirms to me that you have this. And so she got me all set up. And that's when I really knew that MS relapses are so unique in their own. And it doesn't always mean that you have to go on the steroids, but there's different ways that you can go after them, but it doesn't mean that you can never go and have steroids. So I really like that approach because I've had so much steroid treatments, because I've had so much relapses, that my doctor is very aware of that. And she doesn't want my body to be impacted with steroids all the time, only when it's really, really bad. And I voiced that to her, that I don't want to go on this because I know how hard steroids can be on the body. And I just don't do very well on the steroids. Like it's very painful when I'm on them. Like it just, for me, it burns like the whole entire time, like the drips going in, like it's very
Whoa, the whole time.
Yeah. So my doctor, I just really like how she like listened to me, and she like took into consideration like what I wanted. And it's been going great. Like I definitely have more full function, but I still have like that unexpected shooting pain. Eating is better, but I just keep finding different ways, different things, how to cook things. And it doesn't mean that, I feel like if that happened to me like 7 years ago, I would just lay in bed. Like I wouldn't want to get up. Like I couldn't do anything, because that's how I felt. That's how everything around me perceived, like, oh, you have this, you're not going to be able to do anything. And I pretty much turned that whole mindset around, and I don't ever want to go back to that place, because that was a very deep, scary place that I never ever want myself to go back to.
I think that gives hope to the people listening, because I don't, people handle things so differently. And so for people listening that, are to know if they're just being diagnosed or going through really hard things, that there's hope. Things can change.
And I really feel like all of us, like we hit that point on our own time.
Right.
It's really hard when someone tells you you need to do this, and the reverse thing is, I'm not going to do that. So you get to your breaking point, and when you hit that breaking point, everything starts coming together, like, wow, I have this now. I can do something about it. And it's very weird. When it happened to me, I was like, this is crazy, because I was 6 years since my MS diagnosis.
Yeah. And I think it's important to, through your story, through all of our stories, we are our best advocate, right? Like we can't depend on even the professionals sometimes, like, your own body, even if they're doctors or and specialists that's, gone to school for half of their lives. You need to watch out for you. Nobody's going to care about your health as much as you're going to. And again, our family members sometimes can't help us say either. So I love that we're helping, between all three of our stories, we're helping, hopefully you realize that, stress levels are, stressful moments in your life. Like that is when your immune system can definitely do major damage. Your immune system could go from being totally healthy to attacking itself. So in order to manage the stress that comes in our everyday lives and, the seasons of our lives, we have to have tools in our tool belt to manage that so that your body won't attack itself.
Yep.
And I think that that's the beauty of all three of us coming together and creating a podcast where it's positive, where it's encouraging, whether it's going, to maybe be applicable to your life or maybe not. Somebody out there is going to be able to pull, whether it's the topics that we're talking about, previously, or what we're going to talk about in the future. You're going to at least have some tools that you're able to, say, man, like that, I should look into that, or I should, nobody's ever told me that before. That's what I love about this podcast. And your story, your story, you know, when it comes
It's unique.
It's unique. And I mean, it's just, it honestly, like being that we're both veterans, I think that, you know, the veterans out there listening, you need to realize that she was exposed to radiation. I mean, this is a service connected disability, and nobody likes the word disability. I get it. I don't either, really. But you know, to be aware of that, and that there's benefits out there for you if you're a veteran that has been diagnosed while in service or something happened while in service. So your story, whew, that was, it's a lot.
It's crazy. That's pretty much the summary, basically. There's a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we realized we could probably, each one of us talk for, and everyone listening knows, you know, your journey, you could probably talk for a couple of hours, but we hope to bring you more podcasts just about managing MS and lifestyle and so much more. But, you know, to continue the story, because your story is important.
Yes, definitely. Completely. So next week, we're actually going to come on and talk about what is MS. We're going to just take turns and just kind of ask each other questions, maybe, you know, just the ins and outs. We'll talk a little science. We're not, you know, medical doctors. Or, you know, we can research
what we've come across.
What we've come across, and basically how an easy way to visualize it if you do have friends or family that manage MS. So we'll give you a simple way to know exactly what that means, because it doesn't just mean one thing. I mean, it looks so different, as you've heard from all three of us.
Right.
And the way that we manage it now and the things that we've gone through, like, we're all completely different. So, yeah. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
Okay.
Nice.
Bye.
Bye. Till next week.